Let's get to the main media of the day, huh?
Yeah. Well, the main media of the day... Oh my gosh, I knew I forgot to do something today. I forgot to write the summary.
Write the summary? Oh, okay.
I'll record it later, and we'll have to
edit it in.
Sandwich it in. Fill in. Summary here.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 12.
Everyone has things that they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
to join us on our hill to die on.
All right, well, this week is going to be a very Star Trek-themed show.
Yeah. This past week, we got to have a chance to go and meet some of the Next Generation crew. And then, because of that, we decided to kind of gear everything in towards Star Trek.
Yeah, I'd say 3 months ago now, the channel on cable here in Japan that shows Star Trek started airing some commercials for a mini convention that they were putting together. And I think this was thrown together by the channel or something like the channel. It's called the Drama Star Convention. So I think it was thrown together by the Super Drama TV station that shows most of the Star Trek here. So I was interested in that. I sent Ryan the link and I said, hey, what do you think of this?
And, well, frankly, I was super happy to get the chance to meet some of these guys who I spent my entire childhood watching be explorers in space.
So yeah, we signed up together and got to go see them.
First of all, this was downtown in Tokyo. So we took the train out to get down there, it's not too terribly far for us, but when we got down there, we found this building, which looks from the outside like a normal skyscraper building. And then just following signs, go in and go to what seems like a banquet hall. When we arrived there were a whole lot more people than I was anticipating.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, they had broken us up into a few lines, and we'd gotten onto the one on the left, which was interestingly right by the boys' bathroom. We were trying to figure out what was going on, and I don't think I had realized this beforehand, I'm sure I didn't realize this beforehand. They had a mini panel with Brent Spiner and Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah.
Who play Data and Riker respectively on Next Gen.
It wasn't just them, it was also their voice actors for the Japanese channel.
Oh, correct, right. The voice actors for the Japanese channel, which was quite interesting. And they seemed fairly recognized by the Japanese people, but I don't know who these people are. I do wonder if those voice actors have other careers besides just voice acting. Like, are they real actors as well?
Or they're just voice actors, but they do a whole lot more than just dubbing for Star Trek.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because they seemed pretty recognized, which was interesting to me. But yeah, we were lined up right by the boys' bathroom, which, as the panel ended and everybody took their break, Jonathan Frakes walked right by us to go to the bathroom. So that was kind of interesting, too.
Yeah. It was definitely very interesting, and definitely the temptation was there to sneak a picture, but did not want to get my phone confiscated.
Yeah, they were very strict on some of the rules, and being Japan, they're going to uphold them. So, yeah, I was thinking of pulling my phone out of my pocket for that moment, but yeah, that would have been bad, I think.
Yeah, I have been at a couple of Japanese conventions before, and I have gotten yelled at in the past for taking pictures without expressly asking permission beforehand, which gets you in a whole heap of trouble.
So they let us in the room, the banquet room.
It's a banquet hall, so, not terribly large, but large enough.
So when we were in there, we were waiting around a little bit. It was interesting to look around at the people. You had said, yep, there was this fair number of people. I think I agree, more than I expected. And this was a 2-day thing, so there was people that had to come yesterday, and these are the people that were coming the day we were there. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people at this thing. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things I was trying to figure out while we were going there was, how would our ages compare to those in the room, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
You have to be my age or slightly older to have grown up watching Next Gen. But you made a good point while we were there that, no, really, if it came to Japan, it probably came to Japan a few years later. So therefore, the average age of watching might be either your age or slightly younger than you, since you're just a few years younger than me.
Yeah.
So that was a good point. I hadn't thought of that. So it did seem like the average age of the room was probably slightly older than us, but not by much. Only because of the sheer number of older people. There were definitely younger people there.
Yeah. Actually, what was interesting to me was seeing how many younger families were there. Families who they had probably either one of their children or their only child there, and the child was maybe 4 or 5, coming to take a picture with Brent Spiner and Jonathan Frakes.
It was interesting that there was mostly men there, right?
Yeah.
Probably 75% men, or do you think it's higher than that even?
I would say 75 is probably about accurate. And most of the 25 who were women were with somebody.
So there was a lot of different costumes, or just wearing stuff in general. One of the other foreigners, I liked his. He just had a subtle tie that had a communicator on the end of it. That was kind of nice and subtle.
But the cosplay that people had actually, like, clearly hand-sewn these things.
Yeah.
They were high quality.
Yeah, those that had uniforms had nice uniforms.
Which, those ranged everywhere from people wearing, like, there were some captains' uniforms there. There were some doctors' uniforms there. Wasn't there an Enterprise uniform there?
Yep, somebody had an engineering red banded Enterprise uniform. Oh, I guess that's, engineer or command, I guess.
It was just amazing seeing all the different kinds. One that actually made me smile was there was a guy who was wearing a full kimono and then had a communicator strapped on his front.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. And it was a big communicator. So I'm pretty sure, as we got a closer look at it later in that day, I'm pretty sure it's the communicator that ThinkGeek was selling a while back. You can use it as a Bluetooth connected device to your phone. So you can click it to activate Siri. You can say, hey, call me this person, and it will call just like a communicator will. So it was a pretty cool thing. Somebody was wearing Troy's first uniform, which I thought was a very appropriate selection. The skort type uniform that she would wear in the first season. Nicely with pants underneath because it was very cold in Japan. So that was wise.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing I found were the people that had uniforms on that had captain's pips on. They had the 4 captain's pips. And I was thinking to myself at the time, these actors, their characters never got to captain. So wouldn't you take a pip or 2 off? I don't know.
Just out of respect.
Yeah, maybe. I was just thinking, why would you wear all 4? Maybe you couldn't, but still.
Well, where I kind of land on it is, if I were to dress up as something, I would at least have to think about where I would land on the command structure, and nowhere in my mind says, yes, Ryan belongs as a captain. No, I'm engineering officer at best.
Or the only way you would have a captain's pips is if you're Q pretending to be a captain? Is that it?
I could see that. But then that gives me Q powers, so...
Well, yeah. Maybe that's the inaccurate part. So then we're sending off to the side, and I was thinking, let's stand a bit close because we want to get in the line as quick as it starts to form because Japan loves lines.
Nobody Qs better than Japan.
Oh my goodness, no. And they really cue us in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you can see them start calling. So we get right up in there, and we're like 5th or 6th, so we did pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that worked out well.
So we go through our queue, which then they bring ours into the next section, which then snakes in that new area. And they just start putting us in. They had baskets to the side so you could put your bags in and coats so you don't have to take a picture with your coat.
That was nice.
That was very nice. I'm really glad I didn't have to take a picture with my winter coat, like in my arms or anything. And then we got up there, and...
The guy, before we go in, we had made this guess already because this is about the time of coronavirus coming around. It was just, starting, right? And the guy says, no shaking hands. And we're like, yeah, we had guessed. That was going to be a given, we figured.
Yeah, most of the times when I have heard about people going to a lot of cons, especially people who are on a lot of panels or special guests, I've heard so many people just say, oh yeah, I don't shake hands, just because of the fear of getting the con crud.
Yep. Makes complete sense.
Yeah. But we go up, get a picture taken with them. There was a few sentences said. Brent Spiner sang.
Brent Spiner sang for us. That was nice.
That was very nice.
Because they asked us where we're from.
I said where I was from. I said I was from Chicago originally, but I was living in Japan now. And he sang all about Chicago for the 15 seconds that we were able to stand next to him. Because the thing is, Japan loves its queues, and they love keeping those queues moving.
Yep.
So no matter how much we wanted to stay and say, like, thank you for everything that you've done, thank you for your work, or anything like that, the people in charge of the venue were just shuffling us along.
Yep. I mean, it was good. Really, if anything, I wish I had a little bit more time. But still, what we had was still very nice.
Yes. I'm very happy that we got the opportunity because, frankly, I don't get many opportunities like that.
And they're only getting older, and it happened to have been Brent Spiner's birthday that particular day.
Oh.
So he was turning 71. Now, I only know that because of the bios on the convention page. So I had learned it while we were looking into this. So
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I had forgotten too, but I figured it's probably okay. I mean, he probably heard it 1,000 times, and it would be better to have the conversation go where it went than for us to have said that again.
I get it. But yeah, I think it was great, and this picture will sit right next to my picture of me with Nathan Fillion.
Yep. Yep, so all you need is a Star Wars character now.
Yeah. If anybody's coming into the area, make sure to let me know.
Yeah, so the only other interesting thing was on the way out, this didn't occur to me until we were leaving, where we saw all these people with suitcases. You made a good point that it might be their cosplay that they just wanted to keep safe on the train and then change when they got here, and they just have suitcases for that. But I do think some of them, the one that we had noticed in the train station on our way out was a group of people that had come with a suitcase, and they weren't in cosplay. So now I was realizing on the way out that, oh my, they came from a faraway place in Japan to come to this convention, which is, I mean, it sounds fun to me, but my goodness, it probably cost them an arm and a leg to get here, to stay here. And then it wasn't a cheap ticket that we bought to this thing, so they paid a lot.
I just think to myself, that would have been interesting to try to convince your entire family, hey, yeah, let's take the weekend and go to this Star Trek convention. I'm sure that would have gone over really well with your family.
Oh, yeah. If I had said, oh, yeah, I'm going to go to Nagano or to Kyushu, I don't think that would fly. And I would be totally understanding that it wouldn't fly. I wouldn't ask for it even. So, even Osaka, I think, would be pushing it, even though you can get a good train down there or a night bus or something.
Oh, yeah. No, a Shinkansen down there will be probably about 2 hours.
3, I think. Nozomi was 3.5.
Oh, was it 3?
That was 3. Door to door was 4 hours, I think.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's about 3 hours Shinkansen, but still. And even a night bus, that's like 8,000 yen.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Shinkansen would cost $200, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, so I think it was a lot of fun. I'm glad we went.
I am really glad we went too. I think that if anybody else was coming, I would probably do it again. Well, it would depend on who was coming.
Yeah.
Sir Patrick Stewart, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're talking Wesley, probably not.
Yeah, probably not Wesley. Although interestingly, if it was Crusher or Troy or Gates McFadden or Marina Sirtis, I wonder if I'd bring my girls down to see them. I do almost wish there were more Star Trek leading ladies. Well, in Next Gen, I guess. There are more later.
Yeah, there are a lot more later. And, I mean, Voyager.
Voyager, of course, yeah. And even Kira and Dax in DS9.
Yeah, it's just after TNG. Though, I will say, if it was LeVar Burton, I would definitely go.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because we'd want to sing Reading Rainbow with him.
Actually, yes, I would want to sing Reading Rainbow with him. Take a look, it's in a book, Reading Rainbow.
All right, so mentioning Sir Patrick Stewart,
Oh, yes. Back to this.
because Star Trek is now on our minds. It is a very exciting time to be in.
Especially being big fans of TNG.
Oh, yes, because now there are 2 Star Treks showing at the same time. And the last time this was happening, since 2001, I think it was, where Deep Space Nine and Voyager were on simultaneously, the last season of Deep Space Nine.
Oh, yeah. And that was only a year, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3, I think, years where they were on side by side. Because then Enterprise didn't show until after Voyager had
Ended.
So yeah, we've got Discovery running and Star Trek Picard running.
Mm-hmm.
But Star Trek Picard is an interesting show. And here in Japan, it's showing on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Which is just wonderful because, yeah, we don't have to sign up for a whole nother service to watch this show.
Mm-hmm.
Quite nice.
Yeah. If I was going through America, I would have had to do like CBS All Access.
Yeah, you have to do CBS All Access. So living in Japan sometimes has its perks.
Yeah. Or VPNing into Japan.
Yeah, well, you could do that too. Mm-hmm. Actually, though, I was a bit worried because on the day of airing, well, it said it was coming out Thursday the 23rd. So, again, being in Japan, I wasn't even going to look on Thursday the 23rd because things come out in America Thursday the 23rd, which means for us the 24th. So I looked on Friday night the 24th, and I was like, oh, great, I have my Amazon Prime app up. I'm going to look at this, and I pull it up, and they've got the dubbed version only. And I watched the first scene, and it has Picard in it, and he's talking in Japanese. While I understood that first scene in Japanese, there's no way I'm listening to somebody in Japanese talk for Picard.
No, I mean,
I couldn't do it.
I assume they got a good voice actor.
Probably. Oh, I'm sure he's great. But I just couldn't listen to Picard talk Japanese.
Yeah, because we were expecting a very specific voice.
Mm-hmm. So luckily, on Saturday the 25th, when I looked again, it was finally in English with subtitles. So I was very pleased. And then from then on, since then, they've released the subtitled version on the Friday as well. So I don't know what was up with the first week, and I don't know why they only had the dubbed version. But ever since then, the subtitled version has come out on the same day as the dubbed version. So that's really nice.
Maybe they just figured that nobody would want the English version.
Yeah, probably not, right? They would want the dubbed version first. That was their higher priority.
Well, I will say that I could see that happening because I've seen a lot of other things come out from Amazon Prime where they clearly just do not think that English people would watch this movie or this show because they only have the dubbed version or they have it completely non-subtitled.
Yeah, in Amazon and in Netflix here in Japan, they've got kids' cartoon shows, and I would love to show them to my kids. These are shows made in America in English, but the English track is completely missing.
Yeah.
So I can't even show these shows to my kids because there's no English. They're all dubbed. So that's disappointing. For an English show, for a show that was made in America, there's no English track left.
And that's all we ask, is either the English track be left or, God forbid, if you can't keep the English track, just subtitle it then.
So yep, a no spoiler thing here. We'll try to be light on the spoilers.
Yeah, because it is still very recent.
But Picard is pretty great. Some people I've heard on my podcasts that I've listened to, well, they say that people have complained about the pace of the show and that it is not an action show. But of course, we're talking about a 90-year-old Picard here. And at the same time, yes, it's a different Star Trek, but it is definitely a good Star Trek. Mm-hmm. It is not a shoot-'em-up show, although there is still action. It's just not always Picard.
Were they expecting like high-octane, like a Jason Statham movie or something?
I guess so. Well, I think they were expecting a little bit more like Discovery. Where Discovery is definitely action and the main characters are running around, jumping, shooting, things like that. But yeah, Picard's not doing that. But there's still a number of action scenes. I haven't felt any needing of more action than I'm getting. It's fairly active, I thought. So I'm not sure where their grounds for complaint come from. But
if people are complaining, they're people who didn't grow up with TNG.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, too, I've liked is that they have used this pace, the slower pace, which I haven't felt is too slow, but still they've used this pace to build up some good characters. Mm-hmm. Even this third episode that just came out the other day, we've got a brand new character, but they have deep backstories. And I feel like if you don't build up these backstories, then there can be no good payoff in the end, right?
You won't be invested in the characters.
Right. They won't have anywhere to redeem or any chance to change the way they are or anything like that. You know, what this show could have done, and what it's not doing, but what it could have done is Picard could have visited his TNG friends, and they could have up and taken off and gone on an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But that would have been another remake of TNG, and that probably, while I love TNG, it just probably wouldn't work well.
No.
So that means we need to build up more characters, and they've done a great job of doing that in these first 3 episodes so far. Yeah, I like it.
I think it is definitely a good show, and I enjoy watching it. I am very intrigued to see how things progress, because things happened, and no spoilers.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's been 15-ish years since the end of Nemesis, I guess. I don't know. I'm a little bit sketchy on the timeline, but
I'm sorry. You just made me think about that movie again.
But in these 15 years, Starfleet has really progressed. Things have changed.
Yeah, to quote Picard, it definitely feels like it's not Starfleet anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The character development and the decision making and the politicalness, that is what made TNG.
All right, and the captain, Jean-Luc Picard, was not like Kirk, right?
No.
Kirk was a fight-em-up guy.
No.
But Jean-Luc Picard was the let's talk, let's work things out with words.
He led through the boardroom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, that is where most of the action sequences happen in TNG, is in the discussions that happen in the boardroom.
Mm-hmm. And so this show should be like that. It should be. It should be discussions about which way is right. It's very gray. Let's figure out together what we think is best.
Yeah. Dealing with philosophical issues is something that the next generation never backed away from.
Yep, good stuff.
So we thought to ourselves, after doing the board game pick last time, that we really liked the idea of picking a couple of things from a category and just talking about it and bringing to light something that we enjoy, something that we like. It's not always going to be our number one favorite thing in that category, but many times it'll be something from a category that we really like. So we decided that maybe we did a few too many last time, so we thought it'd be nice to just pick 2, because that way we can keep coming back to more things, and we can always come back to the same genre again.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and Star Trek probably will come back a few times, but
yeah. So this first pick 2 is going to be Star Trek themed. We discussed picking a character and a ship that we like.
All right, why don't you start it off?
Okay, so character that I really like, that I want to bring attention to, is the Doctor.
The Doctor? The holographic Doctor?
The holographic Doctor.
Ooh, good one. Mm-hmm.
I just love this character,
mm-hmm.
and I love how everybody treats him, especially at the beginning, and how he plays it off. So this is the Doctor from Voyager. He is the emergency medical hologram. I believe he was a Mark 1.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, because they made like a whole bunch of various versions of him afterwards, but I think he was a Mark 1. But it's just very interesting because he is a hologram who is basically there to replace medical staff on an emergency basis, just in case something happens. Well, at the beginning of Voyager, the worst happens and they lose their medical staff by death.
Mm-hmm.
And so they run the EMH to basically replace the medical staff, and they run him for years when
mm-hmm.
I think he's supposed to, at that time, was only supposed to have like a 65-day runtime or something like that.
Yeah, it was supposed to be short. Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be like real short, like you use this only on an emergency basis, but he kept being the Doctor. He kept expanding what he could do and like adapting to new things and like adapting hobbies and getting things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I remember them talking in the first few seasons of Voyager that that B'Elanna had to like help him out to last longer.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's just, he is just a awesome character because, I mean, you also get things like at the very beginning when he's first getting used to the fact that he's running all the time. People will walk in, turn on the hologram, ask their question, and walk out and not remember to shut him down. And he just sit there going, aren't you gonna... Okay. And then the scene cuts. And then they eventually give him the power to activate and deactivate himself.
Yeah, they do, right.
So it's things like that. And the actor just plays it so well.
He does a good job.
So I will say, they were running the Doctor for so long. Why didn't they make a backup, though?
Yeah, I keep asking this question. Why didn't they make a backup? And their excuse always is, he is too big to fit in the memory banks. But then he loads himself into the holographic emitter, the portable emitter thing, right, that he wears on his shoulder. Well, if you loaded him in there, then wouldn't you have a backup on the main drive? So couldn't you use that thing as a backup? It's not, or was the portable emitter just...
I don't remember.
Because they say they load him on it.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, well, then you've made a backup. Then you've got two. And that thing is really tiny. Of course, it's 29th century stuff. So maybe it had more storage than, of course, the stuff. So they couldn't just replicate a new one of those things. Actually, I mentioned this one time in a tweet to CGP Grey, because he was talking about this on Cortex, I think. Somebody tweeted back to me and said, oh, the mobile emitter was 29th century tech, just how flash drives today have more storage than floppies from 1990, right? So, okay, if you think about it that way, yes, this thing probably has tons more storage than any of their, biomimetic gel thingies or whatever they call those those gel packs that they have in Voyager. But still, like, if you load him on the emitter, that means he's got a copy on your internal hard drive still. So then you have a copy, and now you at least have a backup. Yeah, he might lose a few hours of memory, but still, at least you have two. I don't know.
Well, if you have one, you have none.
You have none, right? Yeah, sometimes looking at Star Trek with the eyes I have as a tech coordinator, there's no way some of these things would happen. The way that Sisko lets O'Brien by when things break down, it's like, oh, come on. You would be screaming at him if this was really happening. Like, if those phasers weren't firing, he'd be fired. I mean, come on. Oh, well.
But you gotta let things break and then give them a obnoxiously long time that it's gonna take to fix it.
Exactly.
Because then you look like a miracle worker when you get it done in half the time. The eternal wisdom of Scotty.
Pretty sure that's how it's supposed to be. I did like his appearance in First Contact, where Crusher activates him so that he can delay the Borg from coming into the room.
Yes, where he suggests some lovely topical creams.
Yes, for your implants, because they must itch like crazy. But I do like how they do give him an arc, like you were saying. They do bring him from a guy who just is there to help people when they're in the room to somebody who's going to study up on things and learn things and have some kind of arc throughout the series.
One of the things that made me smile was, like, early in the show, they showed that they were going to do that with this character. I think really when they had him go into the Beowulf story, I think that's where you first saw that they were going to actually make this character have an arc.
Yeah, that was cool.
So that is the character that I will pick, is the Doctor.
Yep, he's a good one.
All right. So now it is your turn.
Well, I'm going to pick Geordi.
I was thinking about it, and then I went, no, I need to pick something more obscure so I don't get my choice taken away from me.
Well, good. You can speak on your favorite parts, too. But to me, I think the big one is he's the guy who likes to fix things. And he's the guy that does it pretty well. And again, he is no nonsense on this overestimating thing, right? And I like that. But I'm horrible at estimating, so I need to be better at overestimating myself. So I need to work on that.
Well, as a side note, I think that's just a problem in general with human beings, because if my folks are anything to go by, what always happens is my father will say, oh, I'm 10 minutes away. And the first thing out of my mother's mouth is, so that means you're 15 minutes away.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing too is in terms of this estimating thing.
Yeah.
He's falling into the second wave of Gene Roddenberry's vision of Star Trek, where everything's perfect, right? So he is doing a repair that has a time written, the time for that repair is logged in the engineer's manual of this will take 2 hours because it takes the average engineer 2 hours to do it. So he's going to state when this breaks, it takes 2 hours to do because that's what it says in the manual.
Yeah.
So, perhaps he falls prey to that second wave of Gene Roddenberry's vision of Star Trek where everything's a bit perfect. But still, he's a good character.
Yeah.
Not subtracting from his character, but I think that's a little bit why his estimates are always on the nose, whereas Scotty's were always more.
It'll take me 2 days.
I was saving the world when your grandfather was in diapers. But I like his friendship with Data. I think that's a neat thing that runs throughout Next Gen.
Yeah.
That those two guys work well together and get along well together. I think that's very neat. Yeah, in fact, I wish he was more in the episode we're talking about later, but okay, we'll leave that.
That being said, the things that he does do and say in that
fit well. I do like his implants. I think they give a neat perspective. His prosthetic that enables him to see beyond what we see. And in fact, one episode, I forget which one it is. Oh, no, it's the first season one with the Klingons. I forget the name of it, but they actually show what he sees on the main screen. And it's too bad they don't use that effect more because I thought it was pretty slick. And every once in a while he uses his I can tell you're lying because your eyes are dilating and, your temperature rose 2 degrees and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. And I think one of the reasons why he is also my favorite is because he's in one of my favorite episodes, The Next Phase, where he, quote-unquote, dies with Ro Laren and is able to pass through walls and move around the ship like that. And why he can't pass through the floor? Yeah, that's a good question, because the writers needed him to stay on the floor. But he can walk through walls, but he can't walk through. Anyway, I think it's because of the anti-grav things, Ryan. That's my headcanon. He can't fall through the floor because the gravity plating. It's the gravity plating.
Headcanon.
Yes, headcanon. That's my headcanon. Anyway, and it's kind of neat that eventually he does get eyes in Insurrection. And I forget, it's been a while since I've watched Nemesis, so I forget if he actually has those eyes or if he goes back to implants in Nemesis, but I think that was kind of a neat thing in Insurrection, that he gets his eyes, but then he is still willing to fight for the Baku.
Yeah.
Even though that's, where he can finally see a sunrise. But yeah, it's not worth it. These people need their homes, so.
Actually, if I remember right, I think it was he might have lost them at the end. They might have gone away.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I think it was he would have had to stay.
Yeah, he would have to stay there, right?
Yeah.
To keep them. Yeah, he'd have to stay in that radiation.
At least for a bit, yeah.
Yeah, probably. All right, well, what ship did you pick?
Okay, so maybe this is influenced by the show that I have been watching recently, but a ship that I really like that I just think is amazing and cool is the Borg cube. Totally not influenced by anything playing right now.
Right. Because the Borg cube, totally designed for space, would not fly in a planet's atmosphere at all.
No. But it's also clearly designed with the Borg hive in mind. It is so alien, so different, that everything about it is just alien. That is the only word I can think of. And it is cool. It is just...
humongous too, right?
It is humongous, and it is one of those impressive sights. The closest thing I can equate it to would be like the Death Star from Star Wars. It is that sort of...
menacing? Is that what you're talking about?
Menacing, and it's almost primal, the feeling that you get from it. I will say that I do also like the bits of the inside that they do show, and of course, in First Contact, when they start trying to convert over the Enterprise into a mini version of the Borg cube, that you're just okay, this is cool seeing the melding of these two things. So if I have to pick a ship that I just totally out of pure nostalgia and also the feelings that it evokes, one of the ships that I always got to point to is going to be the Borg Cube.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really cool ship. But yes, you're right. It is completely not designed for landing on a planet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is designed to live in space.
Mm-hmm. Which is what spaceships should be in many ways.
Yeah.
There's no drag, so design it for space.
Yeah. Especially when you can jump into a suicide box and appear somewhere else.
A suicide box?
Teleporter.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Just potato.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So this is wider than the Borg cube.
Okay.
What do you think about what First Contact did to the Borg? Well, I think this came up before Voyager, right? Where there was a Borg queen. Because all through TNG...
The Borg were just the Borg.
Right.
They were the hive race. Yeah.
Right, a networked set of it. All one mind, connected all together, right?
Yeah.
And then First Contact, and then later Voyager followed this up, I think, with, no. There's a queen at the center guiding the hive mind.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I liked it as much. And it made Hugh's separation less meaningful, too, then. Well, maybe not so much less meaningful, but it paints it differently.
I can see where you're going with it. See, for me, a hive mind always... It feels like it needs some sort of central processing. Whether that's a queen or some sort of, conglomeration or a core of some sort.
Right, because it wasn't as if the collective was there wasn't a majority voting system in the collective.
Yeah. And so, there had to be some sort of core, some sort of, center of it all.
Mm-mm.
Whatever it looked like. Mm-hmm. And they just happened to decide that it should be a queen.
Right.
So, that's kind of where I land on it. That being said, why is it that every show that decides to do a hive mind thing always chooses a queen?
You mean it couldn't have been a king? Is that what you mean?
It's good to be the king.
Mm-hmm. Because they need more female actors. They need higher profile female actresses to balance out their male actors. That's why.
You can do it in other ways.
Yeah. TNG was already stuck with too many males.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying they could have had other female crew members. They could have, but no. No, I'm just thinking because, you can easily do a core, like a almost HAL-like robot kind of AI system in the center that is the core.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You could do something like that.
Yeah, that would have been interesting too.
It would have been interesting, but then again, I think it adds more personification. That's the word I'm looking for. It adds more personification if it's a human-looking thing.
Right, so that it can be more tempting to Data, right?
Yeah.
Well, at least to the viewers watching Data's decision. Maybe not even to Data. Data might have been even more tempted by the HAL-like thing.
Yeah, probably.
But for us watching Data being tempted, it was better that it was a woman.
Yep.
Well, because you picked the Borg cube. No, not because. Actually, I already picked this ahead of time, but it is quite fitting that I picked the Defiant because the Defiant was built to fight the Borg. I picked the Defiant, though, in a few reasons. So the Defiant basically was the starship that was assigned to DS9, and Deep Space Nine was formulated on, let's have everybody come to it, where the rest of Star Trek up to that point had been Gene Roddenberry's wagon train to the stars kind of thing. We're going to go out and discover everything. So Deep Space Nine kind of threw that on the other side where, no, everyone's going to come here and the action will all be happening here.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at your wagon train to the stars.
Well, that's what he called it. He called it the wagon train to the stars because, again, everything was Westerns back then, right?
Yeah. Well,
in the 60s.
Wagon train to the stars, all I can think of is somebody crossed a river and dies of dysentery.
Oh, yeah, there was some of that, too. So Deep Space Nine threw that on its head and said, no, all the action's going to happen here. But then, of course, the writers got to a point where, okay, we got to go out and do some things, especially if there's a wormhole and we got to get to the other side of the wormhole sometimes. So like, okay, we need a ship. So the writers wrote in the Defiant. And I think the thing that I really like about this ship is the smallness and efficiency of the ship. One of the things that I did growing up was I had made little sketches of what future starships could have looked like. And I had grand plans to send these in to Paramount, and of course never did. But I had drawn a nice tiny ship with one nacelle that looked kind of like the tail of an airplane with the nacelle at the bottom, and called it the USS B, which I think is a pretty bad name. But anyway, it's what I had come up with at the time. So I think the Defiant kind of reminded me of that. Like, hey, let's take two nacelles, put them far out to the side, and stick a ship in the middle. Mm-hmm. So I kind of liked that smallness and efficiency of the ship. I think the things I didn't like, I don't think I really liked that it had a cloaking device. That kind of bothered me. I thought that Starfleet's stance that we're not sneaking around was kind of a nice stance. Mm-hmm. I do see why the writers wrote that in for the Defiant, but I thought that, we don't need to sneak around because we're peaceful people. So I thought that was kind of a nice stance. It definitely caused tension in some of the Star Treks.
Yeah, you don't need a cloaking device until you see the Borg, and then you need a cloaking device.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, and also, this was a ship that had armor, too. Not only did it have nice shields, but it had a blade of armor. Apparently it did a little bit, but still tough little ship, Worf says, right? It's kind of a fun ship. That's what I liked about it. I had a few hard drives named Defiant over the years because I often named my hard drives after Star Trek ships. So Defiant was a name that used. It also fits well because computers are kind of silver and wide. So.
Well, at least the ones that you buy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's either that or you get one that's like bright pink.
Yes, like my wife's.
Mm-hmm.
Although now my wife's, a side note here, my wife's computer is a nice mishmash because her screen had broken. Like, it had a weird flickery thing going on. And so I brought it up and I was like, what do we do with this thing? And I had an older MacBook that somebody had spilled water on a long time ago. It's just sitting in the cabinet doing absolutely nothing. So I found the instructions on iFixit, and yep, you can swap screens. I mean, it was a massive number of steps, but it was possible. So I tried it out, and sure enough, we got the screen off the black computer and put it on her pink computer. And I threw away all the other parts because now we're not going to use those other parts. But yep, pretty nice. So now she's got a black top on a pink bottom.
Nobody else has that computer, though.
No, not that I know of. But I figured if I had broken it, like, it was already out of warranty, so what were you going to do? Like, I would bring it down to Apple, and they would have just done the same thing. They would just done it with a pink part instead of a black part. But and we would have paid 7 mon for it, probably. Craziness.
Probably.
So we got it working.
So today we are going to be talking about a Star Trek episode because, like we said...
Got to keep with the theme.
Got to keep on brand.
Yep.
So we decided, based on the things that are happening with Picard and based on everything, we felt like a good episode to review would be The Measure of a Man.
Yeah, this Star Trek, it's season 2 of TNG, so we're jumping further than I would have liked after we've done Encounter at Farpoint. I do want to go back to some more season 1 episodes, but season 2, this episode is not too far off, and it's a really good one, so let's go here.
Yeah. So, if you haven't seen The Measure of a Man, it's been out for a while. Go ahead and go watch that.
And I have heard, actually, that this is probably one of the best episodes to start with. If you haven't seen any Star Trek Next Generation at all, this is actually not a bad one to start your TNG with.
I would say, yeah, that makes sense, because you get a feel for a lot of the characters, you get a feel for their dynamics. It gives you an idea of what the rest of the show is like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we'll get more into that in the discussion today, but for sure, it's Star Trek, and if you don't like this, you won't like Star Trek.
Yeah, well, you won't like Next Generation.
Yes, that's true.
You might like some of the others, but...
Some of the more action-y stuff, because I guess this is a talking episode.
But yeah, this is the Next Generation at its core.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So yes, if you haven't watched Star Trek, watch this now, and then come back.
For those of you who haven't seen the episode, or it's just been so long that you can't remember all of what happened, I will be providing you with a short synopsis just so you can be caught up and be involved in the discussion that happens after this. So as I said, the episode we're going to talk about today is The Measure of a Man from Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 2. The episode opens with several of the crew members sitting down for a game of poker, where Data gets to experience for the first time the joy of learning about bluffing. At the same time, Captain Picard is on the space station that they've just arrived at, and meets up with an old acquaintance, Captain Philippa, who has just become the new Judge Advocate General for the sector. When Picard returns to the ship, he is accompanied by 2 Starfleet officers, one of whom is Commander Bruce Maddox. Maddox approaches Picard, expressing his intention to disassemble and study Data in the hopes to create more androids just like him. In hearing about the procedure, Data is not convinced that Maddox is sufficiently prepared for an experiment of that magnitude, and believes that something of his memories, something immaterial, may be lost in the process. The part that, if Data was human, most people would have referred to as his soul. Picard supports Data's decision, but Maddox feels that for the good of Starfleet, he must go through with this decision. He must go through with this experiment and create more Datas. So, through using an order from Starfleet Command, he has Data transferred under his command, with the full intention of ordering Data to go through with the procedure. Picard turns to Philippa and asks for any recourse, for which she says that Data could always resign. Data decides to do this, but Maddox then approaches Philippa and states that Data cannot resign, as he is the property of Starfleet Command and not a being who can choose for himself. Picard decides to fight this ruling, and the majority of the remainder of the episode is this court case, ruling on whether or not Data is actually sentient and has the right to choose, or if androids like him should be considered property and not beings in and of themselves. The case is taken by Picard, and despite his protests and argument that he does not believe in himself, Riker is forced to take the role of prosecution and argue that Data is indeed property. The arguments go back and forth, and it seems that the prosecution will win, and Data will be considered property. But then it all comes to a head when Picard turns to Maddox and asks him to prove that he, Picard, is sentient. Maddox says, "Of course you're sentient. Everybody knows you're sentient. It's clear." But then he points to those same 3 facts that make him sentient and equates them to Data, destroying any argument that Data isn't sentient. The decision is made, and Data is given the right to choose for himself. The transfer order is rescinded, and Maddox begins to respect Data and refer to him as a he rather than an it. And forevermore, Data is allowed the choice to choose.
So we've both seen this and we both like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let me get that down there too. Okay.
Yeah. This is something that I've seen before, so you'd be hard-pressed to catch at least a Next Generation episode that I haven't seen.
Me too. I think there might be 1 or 2 Voyagers I haven't seen, but yeah, Next Gen, or especially 1 or 2 Enterprises, but Next Gen I've seen all.
Yeah. Next Gen was on, yes, it was on reruns by the time that I was aware of what was going on, but I pretty much spent a lot of my evenings watching Next Gen with my older brother and my father, so I watched a lot of Next Gen.
So some quick fun things about this. I do like that they reused the Regular One space station images behind the Enterprise, especially because 1 or 2 times the lights that's shining on the Enterprise doesn't quite match the lights that are shining on the space station. It's like, wait a minute. It's a very nice space station, and they made it very nice and big here, so it's kind of fun.
I will be honest, I did not notice the lights.
Oh, yeah. And it was kind of interesting. Oh, yeah, we placed the space station right next to the Romulan border. I'm sure they'll like that.
Of course they will.
It'll be fine. No, they won't notice our military.
Romulans are okay with... They're so relaxed about everything.
Right. They're okay. More military? Oh, it'll be fine. No need to
worries.
worry. Yeah, you should watch Picard. Anyway, I love how they bring up the Daystrom Institute. And this is the first time they actually named the Daystrom Institute. I looked that up in my books. We hear about this later in Star Trek. And this is named after Daystrom, which was in the original series episode, The Ultimate Computer, where Daystrom is the guy that kind of the crazed computer guy. I mean, he's a little bit crazy, actually. So it is kind of interesting that they choose to name an institute after him. But it is talked about in later Star Trek, the Daystrom Institute, even later in Next Gen. So it's kind of interesting. I do like the poker game. I read this in my book because I had forgotten that this was the first poker game that's been played in Next Gen. So this is the first opening scene of poker in all of Next Gen, which comes into play later on. The whole series ends on a poker game.
Yeah. I love how they keep coming back to the poker games throughout the series, simply because, if anything, that poker game is what exemplifies Next Gen, because it is all about the characters. It is all about the relationship that they have. And I mean, if I remember right, the last episode ends with Picard saying, "Deal me in."
Mm-hmm, yep.
And so it is all about the relationships, and because how the whole series ends is these relationships continue. Mm-hmm. These things continue.
And I think that it's very important in this episode because of all the nuance, right? Data comes in saying, "Oh yeah, I know all the rules, I'll be great." But of course he doesn't realize any of the nuance of the game. And it kind of basically mirrors Maddox's thinking also, is that, "Oh yeah, I know Data, we're going to be fine." But again, he completely misses all the nuance, which is, it's basically the whole episode right there. So that's kind of nice. For me, I love that it includes Miles O'Brien. Yeah. I'm not sure he's in many of the other ones, but he plays a great role in this game. So I liked him a lot in that. I wish more of the poker games in the future had Miles, but oh well.
Well,
and I don't even know if he gets a name. Like, I'm not sure when he's named, but it's not here at all. Like, they don't say his name at all in this.
When do they actually say O'Brien?
I don't know, but I know he's called Chief for a while. Like, he gets Chief. And then at some point he finally gets his name, Miles O'Brien. But he's not talked about here at all.
Yeah, until he gets a name, he's just plucky comic relief.
He's the Scottish comic relief.
All I can think of is Galaxy Quest.
The plucky comic relief, yeah. Oh, his name was mentioned for the first time in Unnatural Selection of Season 2. He was called O'Brien in Season 2, Episode 7. So just 2 episodes previous, he was finally given his name O'Brien.
Just at least O'Brien.
O'Brien. Mm-hmm. I did like the party on 10 forward for Data heading out, and that he doesn't want to rip the wrapping paper because he wants to reuse the wrapping paper, which... Isn't that what replicators do? Reuse material? So, like, when you stick things in replicators to get taken away, isn't that what replicators are doing already? So why does he need to reuse the wrapping paper? Unless he's going to regift that book to someone else.
Well, it was a Klingon book, so...
Who else can read it? But he'll read it in 5 seconds and be done with it.
Yeah. But that being said, he did keep the book from Picard.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, because it was a symbol of friendship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right, so this will be the symbol of friendship to Worf, probably.
I will say that scene does segue into one of the things that I would like to mention, the characters.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that really hits home, for me at least, was at the very end of that scene, he moves to one of his few conversations with Geordi in this episode.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think that scene embodies their relationship because it shows that Geordi genuinely cares for Data as a friend, as a crew member, and the relationship they've built up right there. Mm-hmm. It is, I don't want you to go, and yet I understand that you have to, but it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think that this episode, different than many of the other first or second season episodes, gives characters depth. Mm-hmm. The other episodes do a lot more like, "Oh, I'm going to tell you how I feel," but this one passes on how they feel in a lot less words, and it's definitely shown in that scene there.
It's also shown at the end with Riker.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's shown at the end with Riker. Even Picard and Philippa meeting each other, again, it's said there with few words. There's just a lot left unsaid that you're supposed to surmise from their relationship, which is quite interesting. So that's kind of fun because you're not told actually what happened.
You are filling in the blanks with your mind.
For one of the openers, I think it was a pretty good opener for Star Trek back then. So
Mhm.
I think that's kind of nice. One of the other depth areas that I saw was I loved Riker when he realized he can win, when he found Data's off switch and was like, oh yeah, in his room, and his face changes, like how his face changes, it's great.
Yeah, because it's that moment where he has this big grin, like, I can win. And then it comes over him that he could win.
Right. And what does that mean?
But then, on the other hand, to continue with Riker, I mentioned this earlier, but the final scene with him where he's saying, I don't deserve to be at your party. I almost got you basically trapped in slavery for the rest of your life and the lives of all the synthetic humanoids who come after you. I don't belong at your party. And that wrestling that he had to do, where he didn't want to do that role. He viewed Data as a sentient being. And he only did it because, and poured himself into it because otherwise it would have meant that they had no chance to do that.
And of course, Data does see the logic in the fact that he had to do that. So Data is quick to forgive. And in fact, Data is quick to forgive Bruce Maddox too. I mean, yeah, he forgives him here, but you see it in Data's day too, and you realize that Data's been corresponding with Bruce Maddox ever since this time. That later in the 5th season, when he has that Data's Day episode, that whole episode is a letter to Bruce Maddox. And it's like, on my next letter to you, I will do this, as if Data has been corresponding with Bruce Maddox for a long time. His transition from impulsiveness to respect is pretty great. You can definitely tell the fact that he keeps using impersonal pronouns.
Oh, yeah.
Is that even a word? I don't know if that's a word.
He keeps referring to Data as an it, not a he.
Right. Consistently, it. And then at the very end,
it was so stark a change from how everyone else spoke about Data that it stood out. He might have been putting extra emphasis on the it, but I think it was just the fact that he chose the word it.
I think so.
Because it is so dehumanizing.
Yeah. A separation. It is lower than me. Which gets us, I think, to the big thing. Which again, and I think this is why we think this show is a good representation of Star Trek, because this is what Star Trek does really well, is take an issue that exists in our day, brings it to the future and says, no, this is a problem we're struggling with in the future, and here's how we can solve it in the future, which means, okay, let's just apply this to the past as well. And this is the issue of, some people are less than me, so I should be able to take advantage of them. And no, these people have rights too, especially when you get to know them. Like Bruce Maddox eventually gets to know Data and then gets to respect him. They're not addressing that here, but that's one of the problems with our society now, is that we are able to fit ourselves into such polarizing groups that we never get to know the other side. Therefore, it's easy for us to dismiss the other side.
Tribalism and us versus them has been a problem for ages upon ages, and how many people get away with it is they don't think of the other as belonging to the same group. But I think you are right. It does get into the fact that the very core of the issue is the fact that people so easily separate themselves and go and put it into an us versus them kind of mentality. And no matter how far past it we think we get, the categories just change.
Yeah, right now it's Republican, Democrat.
Yeah.
It just keeps changing.
Because at the core of it all, really what it comes to is the Uchi and the Soto.
Inside and outside.
Are you part of our group or are you the other?
And we're so concerned with our labels.
I mean, we are speaking from a place of privilege here. I mean, we're two middle-class, straight white men. I know I personally would categorically say that degrading another human being for whatever reason is wrong, and I know you would do the same.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a problem that still continues today. I mean, sexism still exists, racism still exists, nationalism, tribalism, bigotry for whatever reason, identification, ancestry, religion, whatever. It still exists, and it is a problem in the world today.
Yep.
At the core of it all, we are all human beings, and we're all deserving of the same respect.
all people who are loved by God, right? I mean, bringing it to Christianity.
Yeah. I think that's the core that is trying to be hit on in this episode, is that it is indeed that we are all deserving of that same respect.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think Data dreams of electronic sheep?
No, I think he dreams of Tasha.
Wait, we see later that he dreams of men hitting pipes. Oh, ravens. He dreamt of ravens too. All right, sorry.
But yes, it is interesting the things that he had packed away.
Yep.
Also, the fact that I say Kobayashi Maru in the way that they always said it in Star Wars, or I'm doing it again!
The Kobayashi Maru?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I said it the way that they always say it in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
I clearly know that it's not pronounced that way. But that's the way that they always said it.
Mm-hmm. This is Editing Nate here. We had such a good time talking about Picard that we did go into some spoilers. Please be warned that the following will spoil episodes 1 to 3 of Star Trek Picard. I'm firing off the spoiler sound effect. Enjoy. Although I liked in the second episode where he's talking to the Admiral.
Yeah.
And we do see the other side of the story. There were members of the Federation that were going to pull out because Starfleet was going to rescue the Romulans. So the politicalness of that rescue mission was quite interesting, right?
Yeah.
Picard had convinced them to do it, but then when push came to shove, yeah, and it was said in this episode too, right? In this, you saw the third one, right?
Yeah, I saw the third one.
Yeah, so they were running around frightened, right? So that the people who were under the plot could then push their agenda forward because the council was running around reactionary.
Yeah. Because everybody was reacting instead of acting.
Mm-hmm. So quite interesting. I do like the politicalness.
The character development and the decision making and the politicalness, that is what made TNG.
I do wish the 2 Romulans at the chateau were coming with him. I really hope we see them again later.
I think we will.
Because they were good.
They are good characters. I think they will come back.
Mm-hmm.
Or they are going to be basically acting as Picard's hands on Earth while he's away.
Yeah. Because, they're excellent.
Because there are things that need to be taken care of on Earth.
Oh, I didn't notice this until I heard it in the Incomparable podcast, but the lady makes the slight comment that the Northerners...
Yeah.
Oh, he's just like you, he's a Northerner?
Yeah.
As in some ways also that's explaining why he doesn't have as many ridges on his head.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they're kind of explaining, some Romulans have more ridges than others.
And it's a regional thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's quite interesting. Oh, and I loved seeing Hugh again.
Yeah.
Especially because he's been in The Closer and Major Crimes for a while as the coroner.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of fun to see him again here.
Yeah. Although, how long is Picard going to keep that little thing under his hat?
That he was a Borg?
No, the doctor's analysis of his health.
Oh, his aromatic syndrome. I mean, this is hinted at in All Good Things.
Yeah.
So it is now coming to pass that he's getting it in real life. So yeah, he could have mood swings eventually.
Yeah, I'm just saying, how long is he going to keep that a secret from the other people on this mission is my question.
Right. And do even his Romulan friends know about it? I guess not, right?
Possibly not. Because I can tell you that one of the plot points that's probably going to come up is somebody's going to find out about it and blame everything that he's doing on that rather than listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably going to come up in a later episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. But yeah, you're probably right.
Because it's very easy to push Picard to the side if you think he's insane.
Yeah, well, at least Starfleet will use it for sure, right?
Oh, yeah.
That later in the 5th season, when he has that Data's Day episode, that whole episode is a letter to Bruce Maddox. And it's like, on my next letter to you, I will do this. As if Data has been corresponding with Bruce Maddox for a long time.
Which, I do like that the one that they are seeking out is the same guy in Picard.
Yes.
Which, spoilers.
I do like that too. And this is the first time they actually named the Daystrom Institute. I looked that up in my books. So we hear about it in Picard. Sorry, another spoiler.
You're going to have to edit this down for spoilers.
I do like that it's in Okinawa. That's in Picard. Never mind.